A normal church girl engaging in compulsive behavior to soothe herself is probably not what you would picture when you think of an addicted person or her background. I know when we think of an addict, we automatically think of someone with drug or alcohol problems. But just because you aren't addicted to a substance doesn't mean that you're not an addict. I am Shawnte Kinney, the host of NexLevel Conversations, and over the next few weeks, we are going to be discussing the transformative power of healing. Each of us has a story, and within that story is always an event. Something happened in our lives that caused what I call a paradigm shift. And a paradigm shift is a major change in your way of thinking or doing something, or you can also call it an event. Something happens in your life and it changes you. My paradigm shift happened when I was a little girl and I started getting sexually abused by my stepfather. Before that time, my mom used to say that I was a happy and carefree child, not bothered by much. And I don't remember that period of living, but I do remember the girl I became as a result of the event that shifted the way I viewed life, the world, and myself. When I would dream, I would see a version of the girl that I was and that I knew I could never be again. That paradigm shift, that event, it changed me. It changed me on a level that I don't even think you can even imagine. I was always looking in a broken mirror at a broken girl because that is all I saw when I actually looked in the mirror. And I realized throughout life that I had all of these scraps, these pieces of glass inside of me from always bleeding and really never healing. I was always in pain. And in an effort to stop that pain, I did things to myself that were not comfortable. I made choices that allowed people to do things to me that always reopened those little wounds. I mean, like I would go through life and I would feel like I had cuts all over me, and it would always feel as if I was bleeding. I mean, just bleeding. And it seemed as if the bleeding and the pain more than the bleeding, like it never stopped. And it took me a lot of years to learn that I was addicted to my trauma. And I couldn't let go of what happened. I couldn't let go of the thought of what happened. I couldn't let go of the feelings of what happened. I could never let go of that moment. Those days when I was in that room and what was happening to me was taking place. And what I used to do, and if y'all see me a little nervous, is just because I'm sharing some very deep and personal things that I have never shared with anybody, and it's very uncomfortable. So I may fidget a little bit, I may move around a little bit, but that's just it. I'm good, but and I'm gonna try not to cry. Anyway, what I used to do, and I did this before I didn't even know that there was a actual medical term for it, but it's called disassociate. And what I would do is during those moments, I would literally disassociate from my body. I would take my mind and it would go somewhere else. And that place that I would go to would be a safe place, a relaxing place, a beautiful place. And so in my head, whatever's going on, I was separated from my body. And I was in a place where I never felt any pain. I was good. I was protected. And what I've later learned in life is that that's called disassociation function. And it's basically where a trauma takes place and you develop a mechanism where the body manages and protects itself against overwhelming emotions and distress. And this can be completely normal, and it's a normal reaction to a person that experiences trauma. But I didn't even know what it was. It was just something that I just did. And throughout life, I began to, anytime life would get hard or anytime my thoughts would bother me, they would become too much, or life would become too much, or I would begin to stress, or I would just feel overwhelmed, or I would just relive those moments, because things happen when you go through stuff like that. It does something to you, and it's hard to just let it go. So throughout life, I would start, whenever things got hard, or whenever I was feeling my emotions got too heavy, I would disassociate from life. I would separate myself, and I would go into my happy place. I would become absorbed in a book or a movie or food or anything, just to get away from the thing that I was feeling, trying to get away from my thoughts and get away from my emotions. And what that ultimately led to was me being closed off emotionally. It took me years. It literally took me years to realize that I was doing that. It took me, and it took another event to even make me aware of it. And so, in addition to being emotionally closed off so that no one could reach me, I'm tripping because my brain is parts of my brain is rebelling against telling this story. But in addition to being emotionally closed off so that nobody could reach me, I developed a lot of addictive behaviors, a way of coping. And when I think about addiction, and understand, I'm not an expert or anything to that effect, okay? But addiction in itself is defined as not having control over doing, taking, or using something to the point where it could be harmful to you. And an addictive behavior is, which is what I had. I was not addicted to substances, but I had addictive behavior, which is compulsively engaging in the same behavior despite it having a negative or a harming consequences to your well-being. Again, this could be anything. This could be something physical. This could be something emotional. This could be, sex. I mean, it affects every aspect of your life. And Shawnte engaged in a lot of addicted behavior. So by the time I was 13, so that happened very young in my life. And by the time I was 13, and y'all don't judge me, I had become a serial masturbator just to control my anxiety. And then what would happen is, after that, I would feel shame and I would feel guilt. And so I would have to do something to get rid of that. So I would eat some chocolate, because chocolate became my comfort place. And that only stemmed from my abuser. What he would do is he would give me candy, chocolate mainly, or he would give me something or be nice to me after he did what he did. And so in my young brain, that like made everything okay. So chocolate became my go-to thing, and it did not matter. Anytime I did something I didn't have any business, and I started feeling ashamed, or I started feeling nasty or anything like that, I would go to chocolate. And then that chocolate would make me feel even more ashamed. So then I had to get away from that emotion. And so I would completely separate. I was separating my mind from the world. I would start watching on television, or I would start eating, and I would go into these spells for weeks at a time. Like, I put on a TV show and I would binge watch 5 or 6 seasons, night after night after night, and totally be separated from my husband. I would be present at work every day, but I wasn't really there. I would be present in life every day, but I wasn't really there. And while I'm doing that, I'm eating, because I had to get away from what I was feeling. And then by the time I came out of that, I moved over into guilt, because after doing all of that binge watching and after overeating all of that, I felt so guilty. Like, you have no control, Shawnte. You have no control, and you are just letting life just slip away. But I couldn't help it. I could not help it. And so from there, I would go on a fast. I'd be like, okay, Lord, I need to stop, and I just need help. And this is the time that I'm just gonna do it. And so I would go on a fast. I would probably go on a 30-day fast or a 45-day fast. And I would do that. And then the moment I came off my fast, it seemed as if the cycle started all the way back over again. And so I got caught in a loop. And I started this when I was about 13 years old, and I did not stop this loop of addictive behavior until I was probably about 35 years old. And it was destructive. I mean, there is no other way that I can really explain it, because what it did, and I used to try to justify my actions. And I would say things like, this isn't that bad, and I can stop whenever I get good and ready to. And, you know, it's better that I do this as opposed to running out in the street and laying with everybody and doing, I had all sorts of reasons, and I had all sorts of excuses for the reason why what it was that I was doing was better than the alternative. And I never thought that, I never thought that my actions were affecting anybody but myself, because they were so private. They were so private. Nobody knew what I was doing. Internally, I was killing myself, but nobody else knew what I was doing. So I'm like, okay, this is good. It's not affecting anybody. It took me years. It took me so many years to realize that I was putting, every time I would disassociate and I would get away from life, I was putting space between me and my husband. I was putting space between me and my family. I was putting space between me and my friends. I was just moving away and away and away, and I was putting space between me and God. And I was moving away from life, and I was moving into a prison that I created for myself a very long time ago. And whether we realize it or not, and it took me a while to realize this, our decisions will walk us into a prison. And it's prisons that we create ourselves. I used to always ask myself, and I would ask myself daily when I got older, how did I get here? How in the world did I get here? And I used to blame everybody for the unhappy Shawnte and the unfulfilled life that I had going on. And it was easy to blame the person who abused me. It was easy to blame my mama. It was easy to blame my husband for the things that he was doing. I even blamed God at one point. I was mad at my sisters and brothers. I can sit here and I blamed everybody. I had a blame game going on. But the reality is, the place that I was in was as a result of my own decisions. I put myself in the prison that I found myself in. And I spent a lot of time deceiving myself, but the reality is I had walked myself into a prison, and I was held hostage by my own choices. I was disassociated from myself. I was disassociated, as I said, from my husband and from my family. I was overweight. I honestly did not recognize myself, because when I looked at myself, like I said, I saw myself I was looking through a broken mirror. It was just broken. It was just broken. It was distorted. I didn't see who I really was. I saw nastiness. I saw filth. I saw shame. I saw ugliness. I had no balance. I had no control. I literally could not tell myself no. I had developed a very bad habit, an addictive habit of just completely pleasing my flesh and pleasing myself. So it was, I couldn't say no to myself. I was draining myself mentally, physically, emotionally, just so that I wouldn't have to deal with the deep rooted stuff inside of me. I kept moving. I was always going, so that I would not have to stop and think about my pain, think about the things that had happened to me. I couldn't stand to be alone with myself. I had low self-esteem. I had no vision for myself or for my life. I could see everybody else's life, and I had plenty of vision when it came to everybody else. I had plenty of hope when it came to everybody else. I could dream for everybody else, but I couldn't dream for mine, because the truth is, all of my dreams, all of my vision, they stopped at that event. I caused them to stop. When I locked myself in, when I separated myself, I caused all of my visions to stop. I was afraid all the time. Like, I think about it right now and it just makes me cry, because I was afraid all the time and nobody knew how scared I constantly was. I was scared all the time that something was going to happen, or somebody was going to do something, and I would go back to that place of pain. And so there was always the fear that was always rolling around in my head, that the pain that I felt, I would feel again. And so everything that I did was designed and calculated to make sure that I was protected. I protected myself to make sure that I never suffered that kind of pain or betrayal again. And in doing that, and making sure that I did that, I put myself in literal hell. I was dying inside. I was dying inside, and it was absolute torment. And then, I had another paradigm shift. I had another shift. Life shifted for me again. I think I've come to the conclusion that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I didn't know that it was my time, but I had got to the point where I had accepted that I was just gonna die in the prison that I was in. I did. I had just got to that point. I was just like, okay, I'm here, I've created it, I'm gonna die here. And it was in that moment in 2015 that God was like, no, you're not gonna die here. You are not going to die here. And he began to really and truly begin to talk to me. And before, I couldn't hear. I think things have to happen. And I've talked to people who have recovered from drugs and different things like that. And they always say that, and I know this just from life, you can try as hard as you want to help somebody, but until they are ready, there is absolutely nothing that you can do. Absolutely nothing. And so I had to have, and I just figured that it was my time, that I was finally ready, and I didn't even know that I was ready. But God had started talking to me. He had started talking to me, and I was, I remember just realizing that I was just broken. I mean, broken. And this was back in 2015. I was just broken. And God started talking to me about what next looked like, what a better life looked like, what healing looked like. And I had realized that the reality hit me that the only way for me to live was I had to heal. And the only way to heal was I had to pull out. I had to allow God to open back up those cuts that I had felt, and that I had constantly, I was constantly putting Band-Aids on because I didn't want them to, I didn't want to keep bleeding. But I had to get to a point where we had to heal the psychological, what I call residue of the trauma that I experienced. And in my bathroom in 2015, believe it or not, is really where NexLevel was created. And I was the first woman that it helped, really, because that residue, which when I say residue, I'm talking about something that remains after a part is taken, separated, after something is taken away from you. You have these residual effects. And so that's what I would always call it. I would, when things would happen, I would say, oh, that's the residue from what I experienced. That's the residue from what I experienced. And then I'm like, ooh, it's rough. And so God started showing me during that time, he was like, you got bits and pieces. You have bits and pieces. And we all have, it happens to us all. Something happens and there's pieces left from the act, or from the disappointment, or from the fight, or from the betrayal. It's small pieces, what I call small pieces of glass. It's residue that basically gets stuck and never come out. And it's things that we're constantly thinking about it. And we may develop doubt, and we may start addictive behaviors, whatever, because we can't stop. We relive and we replay the negative words, we replay the event, we replay the trauma that we've experienced. We haven't healed from it. And I had to get to a point where God was like, in order for you to fully embrace what I have for you, you're going to have to embrace your pain. You're going to have to allow me to reopen these wounds so that you can heal them, so that we can go on to the greatness. and that's where I started. That's where I started, and that's where my healing, my recovery started. And when God started it, when we started that process, I found myself bleeding. I mean, and I literally say bleeding because I remember those days just as vivid as I'm sitting here. I couldn't figure out where I would feel like I was just bleeding all over the place. And I'm just like, where is this coming from? What is going on? I feel like I'm bared open and like everybody can see, and like I'm just bleeding all over the place. And I wasn't bleeding, but I really was bleeding. And God, God began to talk to me. He would just be like, I've cut you, Shawnte, and I want you to challenge yourself to let it bleed and not go into your cycle of behavior that stops the bleeding. Let it bleed on out so that it can become a scar and so that you can heal. And so that's literally what I started doing. That's literally what I started doing. And I'm gonna take a quick break because I have bared myself and cried to you all. And I just need to, I'm kind of And I just need to get myself back together real quick, just real quick. So we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna talk about just what that process looked like. All right, so we'll be right back.
It's just a family here. I was a Division I athlete, stopped playing basketball, and it's been really nice to come back here because I pushed myself in ways here that I wouldn't on my own, getting my inner athlete back.
I was a little nervous, but I thought I'm just going to go and see how it is. But it was so much fun. It was so intense. Coach Kev is so great. If I'm feeling like, oh man, I don't even feel like working out today or something, if I called him, he would like, get your butt to the gym. It makes a difference when you have that kind of support system.
I greet him with a smile, I greet him with a hug, and tell him, hey, we on this journey together. And that's the biggest thing. They know that I'm there with them on that journey.
All right, I done got myself together. And I'm back. And know that you all can start dropping questions or comments into the chat. So I'll start taking questions. We are monitoring on Facebook. I think I had an issue with YouTube, so we may not be live on YouTube, but we will put this up for the replay. But you can start dropping questions or anything into the chat, and I will answer any questions that you may have. Okay, so now we're at the good part. That was the hard part. Now we're at the good part. We're at the fun part. When I started my journey, and I talk about this because it's fun. It really is. It's fun, and I really learned the levels that I had to go through. And that first level that I went through was what I call the awakening. And it was basically when God started poking me. He started poking me, and he started creating situations in my life in this was 2015. He started creating situations in my life that would poke. That's what it felt like. And I used to tell him all the time, I said, I feel like you were poking me. But he was trying to wake me up. He was trying to get me to get a clear picture. Shawnte, where are you? Answer that question. That's the reason why I always say step one starts with an awareness of where are you. And so he will poke me to ask me, where are you? Where are you today? Where are you? What's going on? Where are you at this moment? And then it was, where do you want to go? And so he would create situations in my life. I kid you not. He would create situations in my life, which would be him getting, like, I'm supposed to get this piece of glass out right here. It never felt good, but he created these situations so that he could get the glass out that was in very deep. I'm gonna tell y'all, when I tell y'all that stuff was in my soul, that pain was in my, oh, Shawnte, don't cry again. That pain was in my soul. It was so deep. And so God would create these situations where I would have to face myself. I would have to acknowledge, where am I right now? What am I feeling right now? What is going on right now? And then I would get a vision, and he would talk to me about where it is that I wanted to go. And he would always remind me, Shawnte, this is uncomfortable right now. And I get it. This is uncomfortable right now. But I have a greater place for you. I have a greater place for you. And I got to the point where I had to stop. I had to stop bandaging my pain. I started fasting. And when I say I started fasting, I mean, I didn't start doing a couple of months fast. I was fasting for years from masturbating, and the pulling away from masturbating began to allow me to see and feel other things. I could start seeing things that I couldn't see before. So my vision began to come online. And if I wasn't in the masturbation stage, then I wasn't feeling all of that extra level of guilt. So I stopped. I started fasting from masturbating. I started fasting from television. I started fasting from food. Just so, and I'm talking about long periods, not short periods, long periods. And every time he would be like, "Why go back? Why go back?" I had literally not touched myself for, I think it was probably, so this was the beginning of 16. So when I finally looked up again, it was like January, February of 17. And he was like, "Why go back?" And then he started talking to me about what, and y'all don't judge me, he started talking to me about what sexual experiences could be like outside of the messed up perception that I had in my head. And he started talking to me about what life would be like with a partner when there was none of all of that stuff that I had caused to separate us was present. And I started wanting that. I did. I really started wanting to experience that. So I had something that I could look for, that I could look towards. So it was, where are you? And then where do you want to go? So that place of awakening really ignited me. It did. It ignited me. But still, and this is what I call level 2, because just because he pokes you doesn't mean that you get up, doesn't mean that you move, doesn't mean that you take action. Because even in that first year time frame, there were so many days, and even now, as because we're still pulling glass out. I have a big one going on right now that I just realized, and it's uncomfortable. Like, it is really, really, really uncomfortable. And I don't know why God has me talking about this, but it is what it is. But just because he pokes you and he wakes you, and you can answer the question, where am I? And you get a vision of where you want to go. Moving is not that easy. Making change is not easy. It's not simple. And you will delay. You will delay taking action. At least I did. I still do it. I don't immediately say yes to, okay, we're gonna do this. I mean, I'm so stubborn, and I have a iron hard will, so I will fight. It's hard for me. It's hard for my ego to take a back seat to the will of God. It's hard for my ego to be okay breaking down the walls of the world that I created that protected me, because my ego is constantly saying, if you step out or if you do something different, then it's not going to be safe. And so my ego is like, Shawnte, stay in your safe world. Shawnte, stay in what's comfortable. And it was always it's always hard for me, even right now. And I think about what held me in that prison for so long, why I couldn't just step out, right? I couldn't just step out. It was so easy for me to find my pain. I will tell you that it was so easy for me to find my pain. It's not easy for me to find my pain anymore. Matter of fact, I don't even know where it is, thank God. I would look in the mirror and I could never find my strengths. They were so far away from me. And so standing still scared me. I never wanted to look at life. So all of that held me in place. But again, as I'm sitting here and I go through these, as God is poking me and I'm being reminded of the things that keep me still, I also remember that I wanted to be healed. I did. More than anything, I wanted to be healed. And it was that realization that in order to be healed, I was going to have to look in the mirror. And that paused me for a little bit. It paused me for a little bit. But then I remember I used to start talking to the little girl me. I did. I would start I would have conversations with her. And in 2016, when God was poking me, before I fully just came all the way in, and I mean just embraced every ounce of it, I would tell her, I would say things to her like, it's gonna be okay. And remind her that she didn't do anything wrong and you're safe now. And what happened to you was wrong and it was a tragedy. And, you know, just so many different things. I had to get to a point where I embraced and I accepted what happened. And I would tell her that, and I would tell her this often, and I would do this going through every day. I mean, there was so many crazy things going on in my life during that time period, and continue to go on in my life right now, because I still have to talk to her like this even today, because she'll be like, okay, Shawnte, let's not move, let's stay right here. And I have to remind her that you're safe, everything is good. You don't have to live life balled up in a corner anymore. You can come out. The more I started boxing, and the more I boxed, I will remind her, you know what? You're strong enough now. You can fight and you can protect yourself, and it's okay to live. It's okay to live. And the more I would talk to her, and the more I would say that, and not even realizing that God is moving me at this time. Like, I was doing things that was in furtherance of it. I didn't even know. I really didn't. I didn't even know. But in talking to her, it kept me from deciding to hide in the pain. So I was like literally not even realizing this. And I guess that's the reason, that's how he was able to do it, because he knows my brain. He kept me preoccupied. So I was preoccupied talking to her and doing things so that I wouldn't just run back into my destructive behavior. And so that I essentially got up. I did. I essentially got up, and I made it to level 3, which is where I live at now. The action and the breathing and the freedom, right? I live in the good part of life now. And I'm not gonna pretend that letting go of all of those addictive behaviors was easy, because it was not. It was intentional work, and it still is intentional work every single day. But every day I step into a choice. Every day I step into, I want to be happy. I want to be healed. I want to be whole. And now when I even think about where I am now, and I think about what NexLevel is, I've reached a place in my life where I can breathe. And I don't know, I don't know if you've ever been in a place where it seems like all the life was sucked out of you and it just hurt to take a breath. But now I can breathe. I can breathe. And it is the most beautiful thing in the world. And I thank God, because even now, God created a safe place within me and him, and even within my life, where I don't have to wear a mask for any of my fears. I can literally unmask all my fears, all of my shame, and all of my guilt. And I have tears. The tears are simply because my heart is overjoyed, because I never, for years, I never thought that I would be in a place like this. I never thought that I would feel clean. I never thought that I would be able to look in a mirror and just really like the person that I saw looking back at me. I never thought that I would smile from the soul. I never thought that I would have my identity back. I never thought that I could experience pleasure without these distorted thoughts. I never thought that I could walk down the street and feel safe. And feel safe in my own skin, feel safe in my own house. You know, I'm giving you a whole lot of personal information. I used to could never even sleep nude because I was so terrified that somebody would come in and I would just be left exposed. So I could not even be free in my own house. And now I thank God because I actually can. And all of those addictive behaviors, all of that stuff that I engaged in, all of that addictive stuff is gone because the place where the trauma happened, God has healed. You know, it's been a journey, and it still is. Right now, I mean, like, for real, we're still pulling out glass. Let's not play. We're still pulling out pieces. There's still things that I'm still learning. There's still residue, but I'm not afraid to experience it. I'm not afraid to go through it. I'm not afraid to allow it to be. And it has been, and I thank God for it. I do. I thank God for it. I thank God for it. So, yeah, that's my addict story. We're going to start taking some questions. We're gonna take I'm gonna get myself together. We're gonna take a quick, short 30-second break, and I'm gonna get myself together again. And we're gonna take some questions from our audience. So we'll be right back. All right, so question number 1. In your healing journey, how have you seen God show up? That's a very good question. And I've seen him show up in a lot of different ways, really in a lot of different ways, but every way that I needed, he has shown up. But the way that I need more than any other, that he's really, really, really shown up for me, the way that I've really seen him show up for me has been as a father. Really, as a father. One of the things that was real deep inside of me was that I had no male to protect me, and that I used to always think if I had a father present, this never would have happened. Never would have happened. And and I thank God because God has shown up and healed that part of me and been a father, and has shown me a protection, what the protection of a father looks like. And that has been so therapeutic. That has been so therapeutic to me that I can't even describe it. Question number next. what was the hardest truth to learn about yourself? The hardest truth to learn about myself was learning that he did that and they did that, but everything else that happened in life, I did. I probably did more harm to myself than the actual event, because I was making a lot of decisions out of pain. And that was very hard for me to learn, and that was very hard for me to accept and to grow from. So that's been probably one of my hardest truths. What does level 4 look like? Ooh. Honestly, I don't know. I think, and this is real talk, I think I am entering into level 4 because I have entered into a real new beginning. And I'm going to tie that with another question that somebody asked me, because they were like, you don't like sharing, and you don't like being vulnerable in front of people. So why do you consistently do it? And I've been thinking about that question. I really have. I've been thinking about that question since they asked me that question earlier today. And the first thought that immediately came to my mind was why I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here because God asked me. He didn't force me. He didn't make me or anything like that. He asked me. He asked me to trust him. He asked me to take this step. He asked me to share. And so I'm here, right here. I'm telling him a story, crying like a baby, because God asked me. But the second and third part of that is, I really want to know what a life looks like not controlled by trauma and not held hostage by pain. I want to experience real freedom. I want to see how far I can go and what else I can do. And I think level 4 is really stepping into that place where there are no limits. Whatever it is you can think about, whatever it is you can do, because you have unlocked the prison and because you are willing to deal with your issues, and as they come, you can only deal with it as you realize it. But once you know, you have to be able to do something about it. But because, Shawnte, you are not afraid to look at yourself in the mirror, now it's like the world is just open to you. There is no limits now. And so I think level 4 is experiencing that, not just in business, but in love, with my family, just all the things that I can do. So that is something that's what I think level 4 is looking like and will be unfolding. What else? What does the other side of that look like? Next question. What was something that you thought you were so right in just to realize that you were wrong? And I said it earlier. I thought that I was so right in the way that I was handling. And I know it sounds crazy when I say it out loud, but I thought that I was so right in the way that I was handling the things that I was going through. Because I didn't think that it hurt anybody. I didn't think that being in that destructive cycle, that addictive cycle, and now saying it now, I understand addicts just a little bit more. I didn't think that it bothered anybody, that it affected anybody, because it was just me. It was learning how many people it affected. The negative way that I looked at myself, separating myself, the space that I put in, even in my marriage. It was realizing It was realizing that I was just wrong. Do you think therapy is necessary for this type of healing journey, or is it better to guide yourself through it? I always think therapy is necessary if you are a person that that has a hard time doing self-reflection. Therapy is necessary for everybody, period. But if you are a person that has a hard time asking yourself questions and being honest with yourself, I think therapy, or even being accountable to yourself, I think therapy is probably necessary, because you will have somebody to be accountable to. I did do some therapy for a while. I did some therapy, and I'm grateful to my therapist, because she helped teach me how to take it out and put it back in, so that I could go on through the day, as opposed to letting it stay out and then it just consumes my mind all day long. She taught me some great tips and techniques to help me walk through it. So I think every person is different. My relationship with God really developed during this time period. So he really and truly, he's the best therapist, because he knew the route that he wanted me to go. What has been the hardest cut for you to heal? Probably the one that I'm in right now. And I only say that because it's so new. Probably the one that I'm in right now. And I'm in the middle of healing it right now, and I thank God for it, but it's so new and so raw that it's just like, yeah. What has been the secret you think that contributes the most to your healing? I'm nosy. I want to know what's on the other side. And my future me just keeps making appearances in my life. I mean, like, she will not leave me alone. Everywhere I go, she's there. She's looking at me. She's talking to me. She's showing me things. And so I'm so nosy that I want to get there. I want to see it. I want to experience it myself. I want to be able to talk about it. And so because I'm so nosy, I keep reaching for her. I keep reaching for that. I keep reaching for that version of me. When was a time that you felt the most disgusted with yourself as a woman, and how did you overcome that? Oh. The most disgusted with myself as a woman. I'm gonna have to come back to that one, because I can't think of, because if you ask me, I always felt disgusted with myself as a woman, but I gotta think about that one. So before the show is over, let me come back to that one. The journey to a discovery of self is not fun. It is a lot of work and soul searching. What is something you have realized about yourself that you never would have found if you hadn't gone on this journey? I've realized that I actually I'm pretty cool and I'm pretty strong. I am, not just mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but I got some strength physically. Like I'm strong. You know, I can live. I can do a lot of things that I just did not know that I could do. Other people knew it, but I never knew it. I could never see my strengths. And so I've realized my strengths now. So that's what I really love. What do you look forward to? Like I said, I look forward to what else can I do? Realizing what else I can do. I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited about experiencing that and doing it. Even though it's hard and challenging and there's a lot of pieces to it, I'm just really looking forward to what else there is on the other side of this, on the other side of not feeling not feeling any doubt, not feeling any fear. I really do. I look forward to that. How have your desires changed towards men that make it possible for you to show up as a better you in your next relationship? Yeah, that's an interesting question. The best thing I can say is I have become more open and honest, and and this is gonna sound bad, but this is probably the thing that I'm most ashamed of as a woman too. I never wanted, and I never allowed my husband to see me, because I thought that I was so ugly and filthy on the inside, and I never wanted him. I made sure that he never fully saw me. I didn't, a million reasons and a million things that I did, but I was very adamant about that. Now I desire to be seen, and I like that I am seen, and I like that God has placed somebody in my life, not just one somebody, but multiple somebodies that see me, and because they see me, and because I've learned how to allow people to see me, I like that I get to really show up how I am now, and I'm finding that I love a whole lot. I think we have time for probably one more question. How did you learn to align your desires with the will of God? Patience. Patience. The way that I learned to align my desires with the will of God is I realized that my own will was destructive, and it wasn't taking me where I wanted to go. And as long as I was in control, I was going to stay stuck. And understanding that and always reminding myself of that helps me say yes. And that's what I do. Okay, so yeah, that was rough. But anyway, so look, life has had an effect on all of us, right? There is not a person watching that has not experienced some level of trauma in their life, and you've developed some behaviors to cope with that trauma. What I want to see you do is heal from the trauma so that you can use it as a foundation for your next level. And over the next few weeks, we'll be sharing real life stories from brave individuals, and I'm considering myself as one of those, and their battle with trauma and addiction. And they will be sharing some valuable tips on how they overcame and are thriving now in life. In fact, joining me next week is a husband and wife duo, Jay Lauren and Karen Norris. After a 25-year addiction plagued the first 10 years of their marriage, Jay Lauren and Karen have learned to fight together to save their marriage. And they'll be joining me to discuss how they overcame those challenges and are now helping couples take a strong mental and spiritual stand against temptations. So I really hope to see you next week. And until then, I want to say thank you for watching. You can go and catch all of our prior episodes on our website or on our YouTube. And you can, if you're not following us, please do so on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go and subscribe. And until next week, I love you and I am praying for you. And I just ask that you pray for me. See